Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato, and we're working against the clock here. At least I am, because construction remains a mist in this house. Right now, they're working downstairs, so that's good. I haven't heard anything in a little while. I'm hoping during this podcast they don't come back up here and work on the bathroom, but if they do, we will go forward from there. But we're here today, Nick, to talk about anything we missed in the last few days since we last recorded when it comes to Giants free agency. As we, hang on the clock. It's what it feels like, dude. Like every time I go out for, without the computer, I'm like, I should have brought the computer. What happens if Aaron Rodgers makes his decision? Ridiculous. This guy's holding us hostage. Same goes for Russell Wilson at this point, though. It does feel like, Nick, the Giants at least are being held hostage by Aaron Rodgers. They haven't made a decision to sign Russell Wilson. They haven't made a decision to sign Joe Flacco, despite the Giants bringing in Joe Flacco on Thursday for a free agent visit. And then today, as we're recording on Friday, Russell Wilson is being brought in for a visit. But I don't think a contract is coming for either player until Aaron Rodgers makes his decision. And so the Giants just have to wait for this guy to decide. I don't know why it's taking him so long. That I don't know. He hasn't spoken or anything.
He's Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be very
really care that much about the attention, dude. Like at this stage, like I know that's the idea that he does, but why? What are you gaining out of this? He needs not to wait for as far as team construction goes. These teams are what they're going to be, unless maybe Minnesota is getting in on the mix for him. I don't know. But I looked at it, Nick, and from a contractual standpoint, I don't even really know how Minnesota could actually fit him into their picture.
I think it will be Pittsburgh and the Giants.
It's really just Pittsburgh and the Giants at this point. So they wait, both teams, and we move forward. But let's start with the quarterbacks here, and let's start with the decision Thursday to bring in Joe Flacco for a free agent visit. I didn't get your thoughts on that. We haven't talked any Flacco on this podcast in the last 2 weeks. What are your thoughts on this decision? And what is he, 40 now?
Joe Flacco, I'm pulling it up right at the moment, is 40 years old. Yes.
Jesus Christ.
New Jersey native.
The Giants are going for right now are 40, 41, and 36.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you neglect to address the quarterback position, despite taking many swings, right? No, yeah. Giants are not swinging shit, but now here they are holding a lot of shit, and they're trying to get these elder quarterbacks. But honestly, dude, I look at Joe Flacco, bro, and I'm like, nice, Scott's tots, love that.
You like that?
Joe Flacco could be that perfect number 2 quarterback to bring in here if the Giants do draft the Shedeur Sanders or wind up with a Cam Ward, right? Like having that veteran, a Super Bowl champion, somebody who now is used to just traveling around the NFL. Dude, this guy spent 3 years with the Jets. Like I knew he was on the Jets, but he spent 3 years with the Jets. And I remember watching him being like, oh, like what season was that? 2020? I think when he came in and he kind of had a little bit of a run with the Jets, you're like, Joe Flacco, cool. That was 2020. It's 2025.
He almost retired after that. It was like almost over for him. He's like rebirthed himself for 4 more years out of nowhere.
And had I wouldn't say a great season with the Browns, but a very surprising one. Won people fantasy championships back in 2023. And then last year was respectable with the Colts, respectable enough to where they benched their former number 4 overall pick to start 40-year-old Joe Flacco. But yeah, it's not exciting, but it's better than the quarterback options the Giants have had recently. That's just how we are all operating. That's how I'm operating. I don't want to speak for other people, but it seems like a lot of us are just looking for some sort of competent leader to go into the locker room, and Joe Flacco fits that bill. But dude, I'm not going to sit here and get excited about Joe Flacco. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. And worse here, Nick, as we transition for a second, I didn't have the right mic on, and now it's on. You can probably hear the difference. But we're going to move on from that. And as far as Flacco goes, Nick, I'll say this. I think with what the Giants are doing between Flacco and Russell Wilson, who's coming in today, no visit yet for Jameis Winston, despite Josina Anderson reporting that the Giants have interest in him. We don't know if that's true or not. I think it's what you said first here. I think they want a veteran in here who's had a lot of experience. In Flacco and Russell's case, played in Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl each, right? To come in and help develop and help, this rookie quarterback come through. So if they sign one of these 2 players and they don't sign Jameis Winston, though I'll say this, Nick, if they don't get Rodgers, I actually want them to go Flacco or Russ and Winston. I don't give a fuck. I want both of them in and then cut DeVito. I have literally no interest in keeping him on the roster, I'm fortunate to say.
Really?
I'm very done with him personally. I just can't stand to see it anymore. I don't understand the point of it. There's no development there. We're just randomly taking a UDFA and being like, oh, yeah, just keep coming. Just keep playing on this roster for no good reason.
Just keep coming.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense, and I have no interest, and there's no upside. But, sign Flacco, let's say you go Flacco Jameis, right? Now you bring in Shador at 3, right? Or Dart at 34, whatever it may be. You have 3 quarterbacks in there, and you have 2 options from a veteran standpoint that could potentially help you win games, you hope, or at least help your passing game get going. But to me, from what it looks like, they're prioritizing that experience, that veteran experience. And to me, what that says is they're getting a quarterback in this draft, whether it's Dart, Sanders, or Ward. They're going to get one of those 3. And they might be interested in a third guy. It might be, or fourth guy. It might be Milrow. I don't know. But it seems like so far the connection has been to those 3 quarterbacks, Sanders, Dart, and Ward.
And that kind of jives with everything we've heard from Darius Slayton. And I think Javon Holland might have mentioned this as well, where we have a plan in place for the quarterback position. I'd be like, if I was Darius Slayton, well, what the fuck is it? Because I've been here for like 6 years and I haven't seen it, right? But no, it just makes sense. We've talked about it all offseason. I don't want to beat this dead horse that Joe Shane was just going to pour assets into the quarterback position. And I'm right there with you. If they get Flacco, get Jameis too, and then draft somebody.
Yeah.
Just ensure that the quarterback position isn't what's going to significantly hold you back. It may still hold you back. So we're talking about Joe Flacco and a mistake-prone Jameis Winston and a rookie. It will still realistically hold you back. But now you have options if one guy's holding you back. And if it's Daniel Jones holding you back, it's not Drew Lock, who hardly seems to understand the offense, or a UDFA from the previous year who had limited success and now we have bought into way too much. So bring in options who have spent time in the league and an exciting rookie, and hopefully you can develop that rookie to where you don't even have to use those veteran options, but they're there if you need them.
Yeah, you said it best. Like, we don't want to be in another Lock DeVito spot like we were last year. Or no, I should say Lock DeVito Boyle. That was a spot the Giants were in at one point. And you just, even if it's a small upgrade, like you said, Flacco, Jameis as those options instead, it's enough of an upgrade, man, especially for the receivers, dude. Like, those guys get the ball out. Those guys attack all 3 levels, Flacco and Jameis. Like, they will get these receivers involved. You won't see wasted snaps like we've seen under Locke, under DeVito with these receivers. DeVito's just no pocket presence whatsoever. Locke, one good game. The rest were just horrific for the receivers. Boyle was actually the best for the receivers, but we're just saying that because we were watching such horrific play from Locke and DeVito. As far as getting the receivers involved and putting the ball out there, just getting the fucking ball out there. Like, it was really that bad. Like, from Fromm to DeVito to Locke, you were watching a lot of quarterback snaps where the ball just can't get past 10 yards. It wasn't. You were holding it and taking a sack or just getting those quick hitters out there. No one can watch that football anymore. But as far as not watching it, that's not even important. We need the receivers to be able to make plays. You can't have receivers make plays when it's just bubble screen after bubble screen and an occasional throw down the field that doesn't hit the target. So it's got to be something. And this is the desperation position we're in.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the entire conversation we've had over the last 5 or 6 years since we started this podcast, is you need to challenge the defense to at least threaten the defense. Yeah. Put it into the defense's mind that, hey, I can complete a 25-yard pass from the field side. I can hit this flag route instead of just checking it down to the corner. Like, put it in the mind of the defense that I have the ability to attack you from every area. So at least if you are going to operate an offense that is within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, there's more space for those guys to operate once they do get the football, which has not been the case for the Giants over the last 5 years.
Yeah, and those guys can help with that, I think, Flacco and Jameis. I really do. I've watched enough of both. Even Flacco somehow, man, he still challenges all levels of the field despite being 40 years old, because he's a smart quarterback and he's got a huge arm. Same goes, well, not maybe the smart part, but Jameis has a big arm. And I'll say this, man, I was watching back. I did a film review of Jameis versus Baltimore last year, his first start for the Browns where they upset the Ravens. Some of the I'm talking about 4, 5, 6, 7 anticipatory throws in that game. I don't see from most NFL quarterbacks, like even guys that are considered good and way better than Jameis. Jameis has a knack for just getting the ball out before the receiver gets out of the break. And that is just, to me, like gold at this point. Gold for me, dude. It's been 6 years since I've seen a quarterback get the ball out before the receiver's out of the break. And I just know that that's the only path toward sustained success. And I'm hoping Ward can do that, or Sanders or Dart if they draft him to go alongside those veterans. But I'm not positive that, and I don't want to be in position where they only sign one of the two, Nick, whether it be Jameis or Flacco or Russ, who I actually want least of the 3, to be completely honest with everyone. And again, I'll get around to Russ. At least he can throw a deep ball, but it's just not what I want right now. The rest of it's so limited at this point. He takes so many horrible sacks now. But you need to put a second chance in there. You need to put 2 of those 3. It can't just be one and the rookie. Because what if the rookie is the O-line's having problems like they did last year, Nick, and the veteran's struggling? Are we just going to throw the rookie into the fire then and really take a chance at like ruining his development?
I know, dude. It's I mean, you're right. That could realistically happen. And
Yeah.
then if you look at it from a longevity standpoint, having that rookie is obviously the best thing for the New York Giants. But I just look within our division. You have Jaden Daniels, rookie contract. You have Jalen Hurts, just won a Super Bowl. You have Dak Prescott, very respectable quarterback who's maybe slightly overpaid. And then we're talking about our quarterback being Jameis Winston or Joe Flacco.
This is the reality we live in. It's
yeah.
quarterback hell, it's quarterback purgatory, it's whatever you want to call it. But a lot of teams live in this. The Giants have found their way to this. And the part that really should irk Giants fans, I know we don't like to, we do this. Me and you do this a lot because it's life and that's how things go. I do this with every decision in life. I think a lot of people do. But it's just even more frustrating for us, Nick, because of how close we've been. I mean, an article just came out today. Pat Shermer was like, if we didn't take Barkley in that draft, we were taking Josh Allen. And that was the rumor at the time, that the Giants had Allen as the one quarterback in that draft class. And I was wrong about Allen time. I mean, his Wyoming tape was horrific, and he's really turned into a completely different quarterback. But the fact of the matter is, if they didn't take Barkley, they were taking Josh Allen. So if they had, let's say, I don't know, the 6th pick in that draft or the 7th pick in that draft, and some team ahead did take Barkley, I don't know if any other team would be idiotic enough to take a running back that high. We don't know that for sure. But let's say they did. The Giants would have had Josh Allen. You go back a year. When Pat Shermer was when Ben McAdoo was the coach, 2017, Ben McAdoo wanted to trade up for Patrick Mahomes. The Giants didn't want to do it. They still believed in Eli Manning, and it was a risky move for them at the time to trade all the way down from where they were picking Evan Ingram deep in the back end of that class to get Patrick Mahomes after a playoff season. They didn't do it. They didn't get Mahomes. They didn't get Allen. Then 2019 comes. Dave Gettleman is scouting 6 games of Justin Herbert. Herbert decides to go back to school. Dave Gettleman gets impatient, and he drafts Daniel Jones. The next year, Herbert comes out in the draft in 2020. And then the Giants take Andrew Thomas because Jones had a good rookie year, and you had to build around that. So you pass on Herbert then. Now we fast forward another few years after you're just going down this rabbit hole. Is Jones the guy? Is Jones not the guy? I guess he's kind of the guy because he flashed 1 out of every 15 games, but I guess that's good enough. And then we get to this draft class last year where it's like, all right, we know Jones is not the guy. It's finally over. Let's get our quarterback. And then Jaden Daniels is sitting right there in front of your face. Drake May, Caleb Williams, whatever it may be. And you're just, once again, you can't get these guys. This time, not because like the other drafts, you didn't make the decision. This time because there was no decision to be made. The Patriots and the Redskins wouldn't trade back with you.
They find creative ways to shoot their fan base in the freaking foot and themselves. It's terrible, man. The fact that the New York Giants were in on Josh Allen, though, Dan, that they were in on it. They saw through all the warts that was Josh Allen, and they saw this beautiful potential lying in front of them, and then they chose to go with a running back over a possible franchise-altering quarterback, which we've seen happen in Buffalo, is one of the dumbest things Dave Gettleman and that New York Giants front office did. The fact that they actually really liked him that much and they said, you know what, nah, we're going to roll with 36-year-old Eli Manning and bring in a running back over Josh Allen is so frustrating. I don't want to reopen these wounds that have seemingly since healed, even though
they have not healed. They have not.
They have. A lot of people are trying to turn the page on it, right? I'm not trying to do that, not trying to do that. But that is so maddening to me that he was right there and the Giants saw what was there and said, you know what? No, we're going Saquon.
Our lives would be so different. Our podcast would be so different. Our happiness would be so different if any of these moves were made. If they had gotten any of those quarterbacks, I include Herbert in that. I believe in Herbert. I don't care about the playoff bullshit.
100%. I believe
that was the same story for Stafford for the first part of his career. There's so much luck and variance involved in a lot of that, in a lot of what's happened in those situations. But man, I don't know. It's just one of these dimes. They have to get lucky at quarterback. And you know, as we move forward, and we'll wrap up on quarterback after this, because there's nothing really more to say on Rodgers. Again, Russell Wilson visiting today. We'll see what happens out of that. Flacco visited. I hope Winston comes in for a visit. That's basically all that's left at this point. It looks like, by the way, I saw this yesterday, Nick, just to add the one more guy in the mix. I think Atlanta made it past a certain day of the new league year where, like, they've guaranteed some of Kirk Cousins' 2026 salary. So now I think Kirk Cousins is definitely not getting cut. So I think he's out of the mix for a potential solution for the Giants as far as veteran quarterbacks go this offseason. So I would rule him out, I think, entirely after that. So it's really just those 3 at this point. Gardner Minshew signed with the Chiefs. He's off the list if they were considering him, which I don't know if they were. So it's those three guys at this point. They're going to get one of those guys, I think, at least, Nick. I hope they get two. At this point, I don't want it to be one and then DeVito takes a roster spot. I don't care about DeVito on this roster. I need to reiterate that a million times, so I'm done with it. But last thing on quarterbacks, and I guess this one's obvious, Nick, but I think it needed to be said and it needed to be acknowledged by us because there was still some hope, at least for me, that it wouldn't happen. But Adam Schefter, who, is spot on all the time, basically said, it's a foregone conclusion. Cam Ward will go number one overall. Schefter said it will either be to the Titans, the Browns, or the Giants, assuming what he meant is the Browns would trade up 2-1, like we've seen in the past. The Bears do to get Mitch Trubisky. I think that was 3-2, but still one spot. And then that the Giants would go from 3-1. So basically what that tells us, Nick, is if the Giants want Cam Ward, they have to trade from 3-1 overall.
Yeah. Yep. Not shocked about that at all.
Yeah.
The Titans need a quarterback. The Browns need a quarterback. The Giants need a quarterback. You have one, I would say, I don't want to slight Shador, especially since I haven't seen his film, but Cam Ward is the apple of the eye of the NFL right now when it comes to these quarterback prospects in the 2025 draft. And he's going to go number one overall. It's just what would the Giants need to do to leapfrog two other quarterback needy teams? And is that enough to justify going after Cam Ward? That's the question we're going to be pondering over the next month or so.
And that's a question we can ponder, Nick, but that question might be answered for us in another way, unfortunately, soon. It might just be it gets clearer and clearer from a picture standpoint that the Titans were never really going to trade that down, even though there's been some bullshit rumors and whatever Berganzani said. There's no reality behind the Titans are in trade talks with the Giants. That's, rumors, reports. We don't know. It's busy. It's silly season. It might just be shaping up, at least on paper, Nick, if we just kind of don't listen to that and don't think about that. What have the Titans done this offseason? They've added a lot to their offensive line. They've made no interest. They've basically had no interest in the quarterback free agent market, right? They let Mason Rudolph sign with the Steelers. I believe he re-signed there 2 years, $8 million. Levis is Levis. No one believes in him. And so it kind of has shaped up, at least their actions, regardless of what's been said, their actions have shaped up to suggest they're just going to take Cam Ward at one and not really entertain the trade offers. In which case, I think from the connections I've been starting to see, it's now become impossible. It goes Cam Ward 1, Shador Sanders 2, and the Giants are on the board at 3 with both those quarterbacks off the board and no Aaron Rodgers. And my God, is that going to be a position? Imagine if they go Jackson Dart at 3. That would send the world, that Giants fan base, I don't know if they can handle that. Not to say Jackson Ward doesn't deserve to be at 3. I haven't really watched him yet. I've seen one game of Ward.
Yeah.
Of Dart. And we'll see what happens there. But it would be so eerily reminiscent of the Jones decision in 2019 and just such a Giants. I just don't think the fan base can handle Jackson Dart at 3.
Put you on the spot, Dan. Make a card reference to that.
Oh, going Jackson Dart at 3.
Yeah, with all the desperation that the New York Giants have and how they've missed out so much on all of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's basically like shipping it with 9-7 offsuit pre-flop, just hoping nobody has a hand. But you're going to get called by an ace at minimum. So at best, you're like a 40% chance it's going to work at best, but it's probably going to be like you're going to be like a 25% underdog or 30% underdog most likely. But look, I don't want to make it like that because I'll say this. I've watched one game of Dart. I've watched a bunch of Sanders, a bunch of Ward. I'm watching now on game 4 of Jalen Milroe. I'm just going to say this. I don't hate Milroe as much as other people hate Milroe. I think the reputation of him as this god-awful thrower is kind of bullshit. Because I've seen a lot of these actual running quarterbacks who are god-awful throwers. He is not anything like that. And I've seen them throughout the last 5-10 years of watching these quarterback prospects. He is not the awful thrower I've heard him to made out. He's not, he has issues, but he is not what I thought he was going to be.
Does the fact that his hand can fit inside of a Pringle can affect the way that he could throw the football?
I didn't know that, but no, I'd say because Cam Ward is 9-inch hands too. Cam Ward is massively.
I thought his was 8 and something.
It might be even smaller. Look, he's not. I'm not trying to build him out to be a great thrower, but as far as this class goes, a not so good class, I would say the only two. He has one of the only prospects in this whole class with an elite trait. His running is out of control. He's an out of control good with the ball in his hands. Faster to me than Lamar. And I think I talked with David Syverson. He agrees with me. He might be faster than Lamar. Not as elusive as Lamar, but faster than Lamar. And also very elusive in his own
almost
right.
An inch since the Senior Bowl to the Combine.
It grew? I love when the hands grow from the Senior Bowl to the Combine. That's the best thing.
Brandon Allen, the kid who went to the Bengals that the Giants beat in 2020 when Joe Burrow was hurt. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his hands also like jumped like an entire inch when
They
he
always grow. The hands always grow, these quarterback hands from the Senior Bowl to the combine. I don't know what they're doing, stretching their hands out, whatever it may be.
A lot of
But
work, you know what I'm saying?
a lot of work, yeah, whatever it may be. But anyway, we're not going to get into that right now. I'm excited for do that though. I want to do a Milrow show with you at some point because I
Oh, we
want to get your
definitely will.
take. It's such an interesting prospect. You don't draft him to play now, but you are drafting one of the only prospects in the class with an actual elite trait, if not the only one. Though I think Ward's creativity and playmaking is an elite trait.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like it's basically Milrow as far as elite traits go. And it's running. So it's not like the trait you want for a quarterback by any means, but it's something that defines you at the next level and makes you hard to defend. But anyway, back to the whole Dart thing. I don't personally, Nick, like once you get past Ward, I'm not even sure. I think it's kind of your choice of what you like at quarterback at that point and what you think you can project. So I wouldn't even like if it's Dart or Sanders at 3, the Giants have the preference of one way or another. Like, I don't think it's as crazy as other fans will. I'm just saying what the reaction will be, if that makes sense. Like, the reaction of Giants going Dart at 3 versus Sanders at 3 is very different based on the perceived level of where those guys are at. I'm not sure I agree with.
Well, that's why we're gonna, try to figure out that perception to see if it's accurate. Go through all the tape we can. I mean, I'm excited to do the Cam. I'm ready to do the Cam Ward podcast. We'll probably have that
me too. I mean, I've seen a ton of Ward.
enough. And,
yeah, we can do that next week probably. I mean, the free agency will be died down. I mean, Ward is the one that I would take at 1, and at this point I'm considering trading up for, even though I didn't want to have to do that, but it is what it is. Like, if they are even entertaining it now, once you get into the discussion of are you giving up the 2026 first just to move from 3 to 1, that's when things get nasty, and you might have to bite the bullet if you really want to do it. But Ward has enough upside to his game that I might be one. Like, there's just enough of that when you watch him, it factor, that I not necessarily sure I'm seeing with these other guys to the point of wanting to.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into it because we'll do it next week. But yeah, I mean, there are reasons to be concerned. This isn't, and I know you know this, perfectly clean type of prospect, but there are also a lot of reasons to buy in. I would have loved to just had the opportunity to have that decision, not the trade assets, and then you could live with it. But again, Giants find a way.
He did have the Jones thing in college, by the way, the Daniel Jones thing. He had, I believe, 30 career fumbles in college. Jones was in that like high number as well. And it might be the small hands thing. I don't think Jones had small hands, but whatever it is, definitely just like something to consider in that guy's profile, because it will be an issue at the next level. A little loose with the ball, but man, the upside there is definitely there. But anyway, we're done with quarterbacks for this show. We've talked a lot of quarterbacks. Let's talk about some of the other things going on with the Giants. And let's just say this, man, there's been a lot of action on the offensive line. Maybe not the guys everybody hoped for. Maybe not, who was it? Will Fries or all these big name guards and free agency Banks, who people were saying maybe the Giants will get, but they've signed 4 offensive linemen, I think, since we last talked, or 3 offensive linemen since we last talked. Stone Forsythe in Florida, Greg Van Roten. This one is my favorite, bringing back GVR, because GVR had a case to be the best offensive lineman on tape last year with the Giants, the most consistent at least, obviously not including Andrew Thomas when he was healthy. And from just a year before working with Carmen Brasil, a lot of Raiders fans said he was the most consistent offensive lineman then, too, the year before. So that's 2 years in a row that. And then Aaron Stinney, who made a couple starts for the Giants, they brought him back as well. So any thoughts on those 3 moves?
I'm glad they brought back Stinney and GVR, just competent enough. When it comes to Stinney, he played, 127 snaps for the Giants down the season, surrendered 7 pressures, no sacks. Didn't really see the field too often, but if he had to, I wouldn't be like, shit, Stinney's out there. Like I was basically for every single season I've covered the Giants prior to this. So he's at least, has starting experience under his belt, was respectable with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then GVR, I like that too. Ideally, I don't know if I want him to start, and that's not necessarily a slight on him. I just think I want more stability at that right guard spot, and the discussion of moving Evan Neal there makes me want Evan Neal to rise to the occasion and seize that, since he's still a young asset. Maybe you can see if you can bring him back on a cheap deal, if he can actually do something at guard like he did, I think it was as a freshman at Alabama. But having him as a swing interior offensive lineman who could play some center for you, that's an ideal situation. So I like that. And then Stone Forsythe, look, I watched Stone Forsythe when he was at Florida. I watched him a little bit when he was at Seattle. Pretty slow footed, but you're talking about like a massive mountain of a man who's like 6'8", like 330 or something. Like he's gigantic. I never really liked his tape or his game all that much. I think the slow feet really make him struggle against speed up the arc. But This is a swing, somebody who's going to compete to be a swing tackle with James Hudson. So I'm not going to throw a fit about it, right? I wanted the Giants to invest in the offensive line. They're investing in the offensive line, their depth, but I still think that's important. And I still want them to add another starter at the right guard position, which would relegate Greg Van Roten to depth, which is ideal, as I said a little bit earlier.
Yeah. I mean, look, 2-3 years ago, Nick, whatever it was now, maybe only 2 years ago, we discussed that one hell of a season it was. I think it's 2023, where they didn't really do any of these depth moves preseason, and they got caught in a really bad spot. And they don't want to put themselves in that position again. So these are the types of guys that they believe can at least provide them something if shit goes wrong again and the injuries pile up like they did. Now, I kind of wish they did this same strategy on the defensive side of the ball with the defensive line. They've done one signing there on the interior. They've done an edge, but like I would even keep going deeper and deeper into that well and just trying to get guys who can compete. I know they have a couple guys coming back, Davidson and whatnot, but and Elijah Chapman and a few others, but I would rather them kind of go the free agent route there, but we'll see. That could come as the season goes further. But I like the idea of the depth, Nick, for sure.
Yeah. Did you hear that T-Pain is signing with the New York Giants?
Yeah, he looks like what was it, Hudson or Forsythe?
Yeah, James Hudson. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess he looks like that. Maybe I don't know. I was gonna think of some kind of joke with the what's that word? Not monitor. What do they say?
Yeah, you're talking about the how they changed their voice.
Yeah.
I'm T-Pain.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
why it's escaping both of us, but there's so many people listening to this right now. Like, these guys are dumb. It's this, right?
Something tone or something.
Yeah.
I don't
Auto
tone or something.
tone or something. That
Auto
doesn't sound
something.
right. Something like
Auto something.
auto tune, dude. That's what
auto
it's
tune.
auto
But I had
tune.
nothing good
Yeah.
joke wise. It was just like the first thing that came to mind.
I'm glad that it started as a aspiring joke and it ended in us falling flat.
It's just terrible. It ended terribly. Honestly, just really poorly. But yeah, look, as far as the depth goes, the Giants are going to keep trying things there, and we'll see what happens. I think these signings, Nick, as far as Forsythe and Hudson and then Van Roten and Stinney back, they don't really give me a clear picture of what the Giants are going to do with Evan Neal. So that's the thing I'll say. Like, I'm not sure what, like,
Pretty sure they're kicking him inside.
It seems like it, but because then they have 5 guys competing for not two tackle spots, but 3 guys competing for a swing tackle spot. It seems like it would go that way, but I would need them to confirm it because they haven't really worked them at guard.
There was a report, and I don't know if it was speculation now. You're making me second guess myself, but there was a report that he was going to be moved into guard about like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I saw that. Oh, I actually didn't see it 2 or 3 weeks. I thought you meant the one in season. Okay.
No, this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It said like he's moving into guard, but I couldn't tell. Like I don't remember who verified it, so it's making me second guess it. But I'm pretty certain that report, whether it's true or not, coupled with all of these moves, makes me be like, yeah, this guy's getting kicked inside the guard, or he's just going to be like a depth piece who just rides this final year on his contract out here, and he can be used wherever. But it doesn't seem like the Giants are putting any stock in his ability to play offensive tackle.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. I mean, that's what we've wanted for a while, Nick. I think you made the case last year. You got to a point last year where you were just like, you know what? That's it for Evan. The Evan Neal tackle experiment with the Giants, at least, is over. And let's move this guy inside the guard. As far as unlocking whatever we saw in him.
Yeah, it was Ronan. It was Ronan. I knew it was somebody. Yeah, it was Ronan.
Mm-hmm. And Ronan said what? Did you see does it say?
Yeah, he said that they're going to move him to guard at some point in the offseason. I don't know when that is, but I think, again, based on a lot of these moves, at some point is probably going to start as early as like OTAs and camp.
Look good. I mean, we know Evan Neal is not going to be a good or great NFL tackle. Maybe not even an average NFL tackle. He could be an above average, at minimum, guard, because we literally have seen this work with Mekhi Becton last year. Other examples throughout time, this has worked. So I'm willing to take that chance at this point.
Yeah, man.
Why not? And like the upside of having him at right guard versus Greg Van Roten right guard is high. And I wouldn't even be like, look, Greg Van Roten at that point, if Evan Neal looks good throughout the summer and throughout OTAs, I would start working Greg Van Roten a little bit at center, to be completely honest with you. I'm not a huge JMS guy at center. You know that. I've never really been. And I would love other options there as well. So, it just gives the Giants more flexibility and maybe more upside if Neal can actually be a good guard. And I don't think that's impossible based on just other transitions. Yeah.
And also I want to highlight for these guys who haven't signed like massive deals, it's no guarantee that they're even going to make the roster. Right.
True.
Like a Jack Stoll didn't make the roster last year, and we were talking about that signing. Now, some of that was because he got injured in training camp, right? And Theo Johnson, his ascension, you still had Daniel Bellinger. Jack Stoll didn't end up making the roster, but like I look at someone like Stone Forsythe, I haven't found the numbers on that yet. But like that could be somebody where he's competing for a roster spot.
Yeah.
You never know. The Giants could land a UDFA who they really like. It seems like they liked Jake Kubis a lot last year. And I'm not going to write him off as somebody who's going to have nothing to do with this offensive line. I could still see him making the 53-man roster just because of the talk that I've heard last year from people that I trust, and also from what I saw on his tape in college and what he was able to do in the preseason. So I just wanted to put that out there. Some of these guys who sign these low-level deals doesn't mean they're actually going to make the team when the season rolls around.
I think it's a good point. And I'll say this, Nick, just like looking around the roster right now and thinking about the roster and what they've done. I'm not saying the Giants don't have any needs. They have plenty of positions that aren't very good or aren't guaranteed to be good, but they've done a really good job from a depth standpoint of just shoring up obvious glaring holes. Like the secondary is not the desperation need it was or anywhere near before free agency. Linebackers, yes, they haven't added much there, but I'd never felt like that's something that's desperate now.
Chris Board is
right. Chris Board can maybe play from linebacker. I heard he's, I've read he's solid in coverage. Regardless, I'm not feeling desperate there. D-line, I'm not feeling as desperate as I was. Obviously,
I'm a little
me and
desperate.
you are looking. We're desperate to an extent. Like we're looking at 34-65 as obvious glaring interior defensive line spot for them. But it's not as desperate as it was.
I might disagree a little bit. Now, as it was, yes, you're right, because they went out and they did sign bodies. I still like ideally want like two more interior defense. Like I want Nacho and Roy Robertson Harris to like play 20 snaps between them if they are both on the final 53-man roster.
Sure.
And that's not even considering like what are you doing with DJ Davidson and Jordan Riley? Like if there is a part of this roster that I'm like, yo, I still need people, it's defensive. I want that to be a deep rotation. I don't want to see anything that I saw in 2024.
That's fair.
If Dex goes down, then everyone's just like, ha, field day, run the football. They're going to go for 300 unless Shane Bowen puts like 8 dudes in the box the entire game. Yeah. And then there's like, good luck, corners. Have fun out there with no safety help. And Deontay Banks is like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I can't have that again, dude.
Yeah, no, they can't have that again. They're essentially, let's say, aside from D-line depth wise, I feel pretty good across the board. O-line, they have depth. Receivers, I don't personally believe they need more. I know a lot of people are the opposite on that. I don't think we know anything about this receiver core because of how bad the quarterback play has been. And I'm good with what we've got. And if they have to go to Hyatt, I'm good with that. Smith Marset, like even somebody like him, I could put in there if I need to.
I agree. I don't think the Giants agree, though.
They love taking receivers, so they're going to keep
going. It's not just that. It's like I think that like they obviously love Darius Slayton. They love Wandale, Malik Neighbors. Enough said. And then after that, I'm like, I don't know if they have any trust in any of these guys. Like Amir Smith-Marset, that's a special teamer, right? Jalen Hyatt, dude, they've done everything in their power to not get this guy on the football field, basically after trading up for him. Like it's not materializing well with him. I want to see him out there. I don't know,
but they've been healthy too. Like Slayton, Wandale, and Neighbors were mostly healthy last year, so there hasn't been that many opportunities for Hyatt from that standpoint.
I agree. I think if they liked him, he would find his way onto the field more, and he would earn more targets, right? Like as a young player who showed something.
That I don't agree. That part I don't agree with, the target part, because I don't think there were any targets to be had because these quarterbacks don't throw the football.
You don't think they would have like plays like dialed? Like how many plays?
He's not a quick screen kind of guy though.
No, like even other plays though, where he's like the first. Like that dude was running wind sprints like all season last year. It was like, go out there and stretch the defense and open things up for everyone else. And I get it. You have Malik Neighbors. He's going to command a lot of the targets. You have Wandale Robinson. He's the first read on a lot of these plays as well.
Right.
Still, man, Hyatt is like a tertiary option in this offense. Yeah. I would have expected a little bit more. And I'm just speaking like I want to see it. I'm speaking more so what I think the Giants want to see. And to me, having an 11 personnel package where Jalen Hyatt is that next guy up. And if like Darius Slayton or any of the other two go down, Wandale or Malik, I think the Giants would want maybe another competent receiver to bring in here. That's why I think they may target one in the middle rounds of the draft.
Yeah.
Which I agree with you. Like I think from a talent standpoint, I don't mind this room, but I wouldn't be shocked if they do that. And you could also get it late in the draft and bring him in and have him compete with Jalen Hyatt. Right. You never know, right? Like you can find receivers a little bit later, but behind Hyatt, you have Bryce Ford Wheaton, Amir Smith-Marset, and then Montrell Washington, which I don't really know all that much about. So it's pretty thin behind the 11 personnel package.
No, you made a good case. They don't have depth at receiver. I guess what I meant to say and what I more so feel strongly about is I don't think they need it as much as others do.
I agree.
Now I'll take one more. I'll always take a mid-round target at receiver. I would hate though if they went 34 receiver. That's just something I'm just not interested in. I don't want it. I don't care what the value is. I just can't keep going outside in with the bill, because then we start to get back into those Jerry Reese days where we're just banging the table at receiver over and over again, corner and receiver. He kept drafting, and there's just nothing inside, and we collapse on at least on the offensive side of the ball.
There were some rough ones. And no, I agree with your point though, too. Look, like getting a 30, like get a receiver at 34. That's like T Higgins. That's like Michael Pittman Jr.
You can get great players, but like it's enough. It's enough. Like you can win with this receiver core. It's kind of all I'm trying to say. Like really what it comes down to is, can the quarterback play the position? And you already have Neighbors for sure. So you already have a star. And then the ancillary pieces, when he's getting double teamed like Justin Jefferson does, if you have a quarterback, now Addison looks amazing. And Addison's better than anything the Giants have. It's not a great example, but there have been other examples of this being the case.
I mean, Addison is better than Slayton, yes, but like Slayton is a respectable, like I know
a lot of get open.
Slayton's a good receiver. Like he's not, you don't want your offense to run through him. He's not that type of guy, but if he's your number 2 receiver, you're not in a bad spot. That's what Darius Slayton is, in my opinion.
Imagine Wan'Dale with a little bit of space because the defense isn't so fucking crowded, because the quarterback doesn't fucking suck. Like, think about these kinds of things. Like, it's like whoever it may be, Jones, Locker, whatever it was. Let's just play everybody up on the fucking line of scrimmage every goddamn snap because these guys suck. Like once you have to move back a little, space opens up.
So many people would give Wan'Dale like so many like fantasy analysts that I would listen to like fantasy podcasts. They would give Wan'Dale so much shit because he had such a low yards per catch and everything. I'm like, you guys do not watch Giants football. Like, I'm not giving Wan'Dale shit for that, dude. That's not Wan'Dale's fault. He literally
catches the ball and gets smashed.
Gets crushed, dude.
Wan'Dale with another drop where he's led into the fucking hit, and they're just like the ball's like here, it's like behind him, and he's like, oh, it's another drop. It's like, it's not a drop, dude. This pass sucked. It was behind him, and he led him into a hit.
Dude,
come on, wake up, watch the tape.
He's somewhat of a limited player. I get it, but like, I think in the right system, Wan'Dale Robinson, that's an ingredient that you add to a meal that you're like, yo, this thing's great, bro.
Put him on a Shanny offense.
Oh, dude. Or dude, if he was on like the Chiefs or something, like underneath, I know they have a lot of underneath options already, but like with his like joystick type of movement ability and agility, that could do a lot of damage. But
and with teams playing fucking too high all the way back against Patrick Mahomes and Burrow, like give him that space. That's the only way. But the Giants probably envisioned that, Nick, because Dable came in and he's like, I want to run a system like I ran with Buffalo, and everyone was playing 50 yards off the ball. It felt like obviously exaggerated against Josh Allen, but like you can't do that when it's Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Tim Boyle. No one's going to play off the ball. They're going to move the safeties up every time.
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. And
I mean, they're even going to leave the field side open at times. We've seen like just wide open.
It was Cole Beasley. That's what Wan'Dale's like role was going to be, like Cole Beasley, like on steroids. But it just, again, the defense, everything's so tight, man, so tight. But yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. I'd be open to them adding a receiver, but dude, I want to focus on I just want to get tough, man. The New York Giants haven't like, and I'm not like calling the players out per se. I'm talking about like the overall personnel they haven't necessarily had that like gritty, tough. We're gonna run the football down your throat. We're gonna stop the run in a little while. Now I'll say the stop the run part when they had Lenny. Yes, obviously, because you had Leonard Williams, you had Dexter Lawrence, you had Damon Snacks Harrison. So that's not necessarily on the defensive line. But if we remember from that 2022 season, the Giants really couldn't stop the run. No one could run up the middle on them, but they could run to the outside. They still weren't stopping the run because they didn't have the linebackers to fix. It was prior to Bobby Okereke getting there, and it was like Tay Crowder and Jalen Smith, I think, were their starting linebackers that year. So I want that defense. I don't want teams to come in and say, yeah, we can run the football 30 times and win this game. I don't want that anymore, dude. And you're going to need a deep defensive line in order for that to be successful. And big edge rushers and big dudes who can like just clog up, play a gap and a half. And the Giants got that in a guy like Golston, right? Like that's somebody who can do that. Roy Robertson Harris, if you want to put him as an end in certain situations, he could do that. And I don't want to see too much of that, of course, but you still need that big dude next to Dexter Lawrence, bro.
I agree with you 100%. And it can be had cheap. The guy, I'm blanking on the name now. The Lions signed someone in free agency, a nose tackle from the Cardinals for $5.2 million a few days ago, Nick. And I was just looking into the signing a little bit, and the dude looked really good on the Lopez. I saw a cut up, and like he was just what I wanted in the middle of the Giants defense. Like that for $5 million of your cap, that's such a low percentage of your cap. And he's gone. But you know who could just fill that role for the Giants in a few days when he's released for a very similar price, I'm sure at this point, maybe a few million more? Dalvin Tomlinson. Like Dalvin Tomlinson for a cap situation, the Browns are effed on the cap, are going to have to cut him.
I would sign off on that.
Yeah.
So, dude,
it's exactly what the Giants need.
Longtime listeners of this podcast know Nick Filato. There's no bigger fan than Dalvin Tomlinson.
Yeah.
Nick Filato.
Maybe he's not the same player. Who cares? He's still Dalvin Tomlinson.
I love Dalvin Tomlinson when he was with the New York Giants. He was the only. So, like, of all the defensive linemen that I watched throughout my entire time doing this, right, with you, which has been like 5 years, Dalvin Tomlinson, I think, gave the biggest fits to Jason Kelce.
Yep.
Even more than Dexter Lawrence. Something about like Dalvin
Kelce didn't say that himself, by the way. Kelce said it was Lawrence and he's named another Giants defender.
He said Dexter Lawrence and it wasn't
Who
Snacks.
Was the other note? Was it? Oh, Snacks Harrison.
Was it Snacks?
Yeah, he said Snacks and Dexter Lawrence.
I'm talking about just what I've seen plays where Dalvin Tomlinson has like physically just moved Kelce.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't see many of that of Dex, but the thing was, every time when Dex became Dex, the Eagles like drastically changed their game. Yeah. Like Dalvin was getting one-on-one with Kelce. Dex, not all the time, right? And if
also, to be fair, Kelce did say in an interview earlier this offseason that the players who gave him the most, this was a separate interview, right? So this is kind of conflicting things what he said.
Yeah.
The players that gave him the most trouble when he was in his NFL career are the low center of gravity guys like Dalvin. So
yeah, dude. He's like fire hydrant, dude. It's like trying to block a stump. And they're just cemented into the ground, bro. It's tough to move.
It is like that with Dalvin. They should just they better sign Dalvin Tomlinson. Find the cap room. It's only going to cost you that much. This is just a player they need on their team. They need Dalvin Tomlinson on their team.
And he's a dude who like loved being a New York Giant, right? Like when the Giants let him walk, it was like sad, but it was understandable because they had Leonard Williams and they had Dexter Lawrence, right? But like it was like, dude, this guy like loved being a Giant, man. I would fully support that, and I'd still want to add somebody in the draft too. What's up?
You could sign Dalvin Thompson and draft a guy 34. We want you to, and that's what I'm gonna say. By the way, Nick, like at the time we agreed with that. Like, oh yeah, you can just let Dalvin go because we have Leonard and we've invested in Leonard and Dex. Now you and I, at least me, and I think you've maybe always been on this, but you're definitely on this now. I don't even think that way anymore. I just get them all, keep just as many defensive linemen as I can get and offensive linemen on this roster. I'm in on that. I want rotation. I want all my investment to be on the fucking interior, not the interior, the trenches on both sides of the ball. I don't need to pay receivers. I'll just draft those. I don't need to pay running backs. I'll just draft those. Like, don't worry as much about the outside of a football field. Get your shit ready inside rotation. I don't care if you're over investing in D tackle like they used to care about. Like, oh, we can't put all this money into D tackle and all these picks. No, it's how you win the games. You literally win the games on the line of scrimmage and at quarterback. The rest falls into place. Receivers are fun. They're flashy. Corners are fun. They're flashy. It doesn't matter, though. The quarterback decides what's going on if he gets the ball out of his hands, and the O-line and the D-line do the rest.
So I know you feel that. I think you feel this way, right? We're not including like top tier wide receivers in that. You pay
those guys change the game.
Jamar,
Neighbors.
But like, don't go out and give Gabe Davis $15 million. It's that kind of stuff is kind of what we're talking about.
That Gabe Davis contract.
Jacksonville does it every year. Every year Jacksonville signs a wide receiver, and I'm like, that's a lot for them. And it never works out. Right now it's Diami Brown, but it's a 1 year deal.
They have Gabe Davis on that roster. It's so absurd.
Watching Jacksonville games last year when I was like you'd see Brian Thomas, like they're both like similar height.
Yeah.
Like Thomas is like really lean. And sometimes when I'm watching from like afar, or if I'm watching on my iPad, I'm just like, oh wait, who's he throwing the ball to? And then when it wasn't called, I was like, oh, that must have been Gabe Davis. Like Brian Thomas, right?
I mean, they let Balky be the GM there for like at least a few years. That was unbelievable. Everyone knew he was a joke. Like that's like one of those examples of like literally, even though people who know nothing about football, I literally believe some internet GMs would be definitely better than what Balky's done with that roster. Like if you just can look at fucking like consensus mock boards and do better than him, and like obviously not to sign Gabe Davis. Like these are freaking obvious things not to do.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was. I remember Gabe as like a sophomore. People were like, "This guy's going to be great."
No, I thought at one point he was going to be great. And after that playoff game, the Bills Bengals, I believe, whatever it was, I thought he was going to be great. You're talking about back to college.
Well, he had the 4 touchdown game against Kansas City.
That's what it was. It was Bills, Kansas City. I was like, oh shit, this dude's amazing. Turns out it was Josh Allen the whole time.
Yeah, it was Josh Allen and a lot of coverage towards Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, exactly. It's Josh Allen lighting up one-on-ones with his arm. But anyway, That's all we have for today on the Big Blue Banter podcast. Keep it locked and loaded. Hopefully, Aaron Rodgers decides to grace us with his decision soon. And it's sickening, Nick. It's sickening that I and still want the Giants to sign this guy. He's such an asshole, but I don't even care. That's how fucked up it is being a fan of a football team, that like you have to make bargains with yourself. And like, this guy's annoying, but whatever. There's nothing at quarterback and there's no way to get them. So I need this.
If you're going to be mad at anybody, be mad at Joe Shane for allowing us to get to this point.
They say they have a plan, Nick. You know, he told it to Slayton, he told Holland, whatever. Everyone's got a plan until they don't have a plan.
Realistically, like, what is that? Like, realistically, that plan is more than likely. We're going to wait for Aaron Rodgers to sign. If he does not sign with us, we are going to sign either Joe Flacco, Russell Wilson, or James. It's the plan we've just like laid out, right? And then we're going to draft the quarterback. And it's like, that's not the best plan. Unless they sign two of those guys. Now, maybe they'll only sign Rodgers and then draft somebody. But if it's not Rodgers, they'll sign two of the available free agents. But at that point, like, these free agents might, like, are they waiting on Rodgers too? Because they may have an opportunity to start with the Giants, and they know that. Like, they'll be like, hey, I'm going to sign wherever. All the starting jobs are gone. I may have an opportunity to start with the Giants. That could be the plan for the New York Giants, is they are in talks with the agents of these guys, and they know, like, hey, if the Steelers go with Rodgers, all these free agents know they have a chance to start quarterback for the New York Giants in 2025. So we can possibly get two of them and draft somebody, and that could be the plan.
Though I don't know, because, you know, if they both want to start, let's say Flacco and Russ or Jameis and Russ, whatever it may be, there's still 4 jobs open, right? Giants, Steelers, Browns, and Titans are still open. So
the Browns, that's where it gets really interesting. And then the Titans, I think the Titans are like, we've kind of already. I think they're going to go.
I think it's just Ward. I think we're screwed. I think they're just taking Cam Ward there at 1. But I don't want to say that just yet, because I want to leave out the hope and have the fun content of us doing a Ward podcast and talking trade up. So I'm not saying that right now on March 14th. That'll really take the air out of the balloon here for the Giants. We don't need that just yet. We've had a lot of air already taken out of all of our balloons. But that was a weird reference, but we're going to go with it. But yeah, man, I hope that. If they do, like, I wonder if they do sign Aaron Rodgers, it will allow them to be less, you know, desperate at quarterback in the draft. Because I hope they're open to ideas. Like, if let's say it goes Ward and then Abdul Carter or Hunter at 2 to the Browns, I hope the Giants are open to something like, let me read the market. I can maybe trade down and still get Shador at 7, still get Shador at 8, still get Shador maybe deeper, because like the Raiders, for example, who were supposedly interested in Shador, they just signed Geno to a massive extension. Like, I doubt they're taking Shador.
I wanted to get your opinion on this too. I know we said we were leaving, but the Geno, like, I figured Geno was going to either force a new contract because he was at such a low bargain, or get traded. But we didn't really talk a lot about it on the podcast. And when I saw that he got traded, I was like, how invested were the Giants in on this? Were they involved in the talks? I've heard whispers that they were, but like, I don't know at all. I feel like if you're as desperate for a quarterback, you should probably explore that. And it's not like the Geno Smith experiment in New York was a disaster. I know, like, what ended up happening ended up being disastrous for those who had a job, but that wasn't Geno's fault. Geno was just a backup to Eli, and he was told he was going to start, and he did, and they lost. And it wasn't terrible. And then McAdoo and Reese got fired, and Geno left the following season. But that's not Geno's fault.
It wasn't his fault, but I don't think they were going back down that well.
I would have certainly entertained it, though. Would you? Geno Smith's a good quarterback.
I don't really want to give up draft capital for a player.
But like what was it? It was
third rounder.
A third rounder. I think yes. I 1 third-round pick, I could have done that. Geno Smith's what, like 34, 33? Like, he's not that old.
He's not
I have so much respect, dude. Every time we watched a lot of Seattle football in the last 3 years because the Giants played them like every season. Yeah. Every time I've come away like mind blown that Geno Smith is not more discussed as a better quarterback, right? Like people are like, yeah, Geno Smith's whatever. Like, he could be in the argument for like a top 12, 15 quarterback in the league, right?
He would have been, and a lot of people say the only reason he had such a down year was because of how disastrous their offensive line was last year.
And their system was a disaster. Yeah.
When they've given him time, he's picked apart defenses. And like I was going to say, he would have given me what I'm looking for right now at quarterback, which is a quarterback who will challenge all areas of the field and give our receivers chances at actual real targets and chances to make plays. I need that. I don't think I'm getting that out of Russ. I need that out of something. And so, like, he would have given us that. So I should have been more open
Like,
to
I
it. It
wonder
doesn't
if
appear the Giants were very
if
interested.
Seattle was like, if the Giants were involved, maybe he wanted to go to the Raiders to be with Coach Carroll. Like maybe
Yeah,
that
yeah,
and that like factor into it.
possibly.
He originally entered the league as no. I'm trying to look. If it was just a third, like that to me
I
is
mean, it was just a third, yeah.
it's not terrible, dude.
No, it's not terrible for the Raiders, but I do think with the big extension, it really very likely takes them out of Shador Sanders' market. And man, I haven't seen a
Yeah,
lot of other like league wide interest in Sanders behind the Giants. So it's like,
could be the
if
Giants, dude.
what'd you say?
Could be just the Giants at 3.
And the Browns. Those are the two teams I've seen tied to Sanders. But like, if the Browns pass on him, um, you know, I just
If it goes Cam Ward and Shador, and we're sitting there at 3 though, and it's like, man, we're getting Travis Hunter. And it's like, to me, I'm still like happy, and I
yeah, oh,
want the
me too.
quarterback, but like, get Hunter, bring him in. He can help you on both sides of the football. And now, if you like Jackson Dart at 34, if you want to trade back up, I'm not really too thrilled about trading back up. But like, if you feel the market out and you think you have to, and you love a quarterback or Shuck or something, I gotta watch Shuck, man. I really do. But it's not a terrible situation to find yourself in, especially in the weaker class. I think the situation last year was worse when you missed out on those top 3 quarterbacks. And I love the fact that we got Malik Neighbors. You and I are huge Malik Neighbors fans, but like those guys were staring. This is not that class, as everybody is well aware of at this point.
Yeah, no, and it is what it is. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of play this out at quarterback as we move forward. But thanks to everybody for tuning in to Big Ben Podcast. I want to say this. I should have said at the top of the show. My God, you guys heeded the call last episode. Over 1,000 likes on our last video. I've never seen that 1K. I've checked these videos often, Nick. I've never seen it say 1K on the like button. So if you're watching now and you were one of those people, please click like again, but also thank you. Getting that thing to 1K likes. It's no surprise to me that it's almost 7,000 views, which is one of our largest videos in a while, because the likes push it up the algorithm. And we need you to like the video and a comment on the video, if you can, about what we said or just anything about the Giants or us would be helpful. So like and comment always help us drive this up the algorithm. Great content is on the way. Draft stuff on the way. So have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.